Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Podcast 20. We're pretty much coming within the last couple of podcasts that we're going to be moving in for the end of season 1. Thank you for everyone who's subscribed. Thank you to everyone now moving at 487 today. Damn! That was like 100 difference from last podcast, so we deeply do appreciate. For those of you who are returning viewers, please like and subscribe as always. I'm Sean, John, or Yahya, depends what you're asking. He's Chris. This is your voice, your nation. Welcome back to our podcast. So, getting straight to it, yes, I'm wearing my headscarf again today. Most of you have seen this before. Chris is at least a little bit more aware. It is to be done involving the podcast that I've got. I tend to wear it when I deal with Palestinian issues. My headings for today are: the grooming gang victim would rather be dead most days as abusers is sentenced. This was something you wouldn't see in the general public, because it was very much hush-hush under the carpet, because it was an all-white grooming gang in the north of the country. All white and Christian, but of course their religion has no bearing and their skin colour has no bearing because they're not of a certain demographic that sells papers. Israel reservists speak out against the Gaza war continuing on as pressure on Netanyahu grows, hence my headscarf. Local election and the rise of the far-right Reform Party. 8 arrested in 2 separate anti-terror operations. And over at Chris's side we have...
Why does the cost of fuel vary from town to town? Got a couple of pieces on that. Lucy Powell and her statement regarding grooming gangs on the radio. She'll be discussing that today. It ties up nicely with your grooming gangs piece.
We'll double them up.
Yeah. And then Farage possibly to lead the UK, touching on regarding what you need. And social care needing saving because it's on the verge of collapse.
Yeah, the social care, I've been a care worker, so I know how bad it is. In the prospects that someone like Farage wins, hypothetically, he's not going to. He's not going to win a general election.
You hope.
No, I don't hope. To coin that point of view, we'll tie a couple of these in together.
Yeah.
But the reason being he won't win is because the turnout in the UK for the local election is only 29.5%.
Local election.
In the local election.
Local election.
But in national election, it's around 65 to 70. So, yes, Nigel Farage has pinched a huge chunk of the Conservative vote, but it's not the country vote. That's the important factor. It puts him on the radar. More importantly, it also gives the fact that his councils now can be greatly scrutinised about how they're going to run those councils. And when those councils, like he's never successfully managed to run anything yet. And I honestly think that those councils are going to continue going bankrupt. Because Farage has no plan. He has no articulated plan for what he's doing.
Okay, since we're on Farage, I'll do my piece on it as well.
Go.
Very, very real possibility Farage could lead UK, says Scottish First Minister.
No.
Yeah, this is just a lovely thing. Scottish First Minister has warned that the very possibility that Nigel Farage could be the UK's next Prime Minister, expressing concern about what might mean for the country's future. John Swinley also accused both Labour and the Conservatives of cozying up to the Reform UK leader. For the one to deal with Farage is to confront him, and that is exactly what will be done in Scotland. He
Absolutely.
said.
And the Liberal Democrats are no different from this.
Yeah.
I mean, the Liberal Democrats are like this is actually the fight is on, because he's now pinched the core of the Conservatives. But many moderate Conservatives, friends and family members of mine, are disgusted with Farage because realistically, he's a closet racist. He doesn't admit to any of the racist shit that is spoken by almost all of his councillors. Like, he's sacked councillors, thrown out members of parliament of his own party. He's never managed to coherently hold his party together because of the incredibly racist shit that comes out of their mouths. And that is the fundamental problem we have. Yes, we have a migration problem. Yes, the migration problem needs to be resolved. No, you don't resolve it by electing racist people. That is a backward step. So, from my point of view, the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage, appears on several of the front pages. The Daily Telegraph shows him holding up 6 fingers externally, the margin of victory in the Rjukan and the Halsbury by-elections, with the headlines, "The 6 votes that shook politics." No, they didn't. Again, I remind you of the turnout for local election is the lowest it's been in 10 years.
The fact that it's lowest is rather concerning.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, and of course, because local elections are actually important. Yeah. Now, I'm glad to say in Gloucestershire, we were one shy away from a Liberal Democratic council.
Oof, so close.
27 seats. 27.
So close.
Brexit, sorry, my apologies, the UK Reform Party. You can understand how you get confused with the UK Independent Party, the Brexit Party, the now the Reform bloody Party.
They're all the same bloody people.
They're all the same people. But they've acquired 11 votes for us in Gloucestershire. So there is an undercurrent, but the undercurrent is not large enough. Nigel Farage has never successfully run a damn thing.
They're going off purely based on the fact that he's managed they've managed to gain a small foothold within the local elections. But that means nothing regarding the bigger picture.
No, of course not.
I'm also concerned with the fact that there's such a small turnout on the local elections, because of the fact, obviously, that says to me that people are starting to give up on politics.
That is a terrifying thing as well.
That's worse than Farage becoming UK Prime Minister, the fact that people are giving up on politics.
Because the politics runs our lives.
Yes.
That is unquestionable, Britain. You have to understand that the Reform UK leader got to where he was by a terrible fucking turnout of the local election. Lowest in 10 years. The average lows are normally 30 to 31%. The highs of local election, 35, 37%. So they always are a low section of the country. But national elections do very, very well. 68 is a low, 70 is an average, 75 is a high level of British turnout. You have to understand that this man is pinching on the fears of extremely xenophobic, racist elders. And then we've got to say it as it is. People older than me and Chris, who are sat there looking around at their country, which they claim is changing. It's changing because there is not enough money for white teenagers today to have children. You the white racists, you the xenophobic isolationists, need white kids to have children. They cannot. White kids as in white teenagers. They cannot. They just cannot do it because it's financially unburdensome.
Bear in mind, that's teenagers of legal consent.
Yeah. I'm not
having any of these people going, me. No, it's legal age, thank you very much.
The common sense would have said that.
Yeah, but you don't know sometimes.
Fucking lunatics. 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, those young teenagers coming into early adulthood, for them to have children, they have to be financially stable. This country offers no financial stability and we're not stable, for fuck's sake.
I'm only just gaining stability. What are you on?
He's just got his shit together. I'm busting my ass at work every fucking other day. It's not feasible for the 20-year-olds to have kids. For you white nationalists. So this is not an immigration problem.
There is a way, but it comes out of our taxpayers' pocket.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's purely benefits.
Absolutely.
That's the only way, and unfortunately, you go along the benefit scheme, you end up being put into that class of people, and it's just...
The problem being is, Chris, the benefit numbers are still under 500,000. There's only 500,000 people who are mature adults who claim benefits. I'm not...
Yeah, do you know what that is? I can tell you that right now. Yeah, and if you earn anything over £17,500, they will not give you shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's only 500,000 benefit claimers in the United Kingdom, and that is tiny out of 70 million people.
Yeah,
that's a tiny.
It's a fraction.
Yeah, it's a fraction of it. One in 140th, literally 1 in a 140th of the population is claiming benefits. That is nothing. That is absolutely nothing. So when you take into consideration that we spend more on tax rebates to super rich people and companies than we have ever paid in any form of dividends when it comes towards benefit claimers. But Reform's victory is hollow. We do not need to react the same way that Western media is, or British media is reacting, because they're very right-wing. Even the fucking BBC are right-wing. The British press are incredibly right-wing, and they are going to see this as some kind of great victory, and they're going to crow about it. Reality is, it's not. It's 29.5% of the population. It is a core chunk of the Conservatives. The council seats have not vastly moved. Labour hasn't lost a huge amount. The left hasn't lost a huge amount. What has happened is the Tories are getting eaten by the Reformists. That's what it is. It's just this. One right wing is going that way, one right wing is going that way. That is the politics. That is the reality that you're looking at. And Reform UK's inability to hold... the scary thing is, if they actually provided an actual structure, as evil as they are, If they provided competency, they would get a hell of a lot more votes. Because it wouldn't be even a moral position at that point. It's they're the competently evil.
They're the ones that are actually getting shit done, which would win them votes, but they haven't even got the structure to do that.
That's the point, they don't. The
There's
infighting is
infeuding was
unreal.
ridiculous.
I mean, they make the Tories look like amateurs when it comes to fucking feuding with each other. And this is why I'm not as concerned. It is something for us to pay attention to. We will discuss matters.
It's to monitor, but not to worry.
It's definitely something you're going to need to monitor. Nigel Farage will not be Prime Minister. Kelly Bennock will absolutely not be Prime Minister. She's dead in the water. Her career is practically over. She's not going to be the opposition leader that reaches the next election. I'm telling you that now. That's unquestionable. It's uncandidly. She will not meet the next general election. One of the key factors that she won't reach the next general election is because of how incredibly badly the Tories have done. They're now going to have to wield out one of their charismatic leaders, someone who's been hiding in the background, if they've got anyone, that can actually save their party, because their party is on death's door. For the Conservatives, Farage's actions are incredibly fucking damaging. I'd be terrified if I was a Conservative, but I'm not, so, nah. The Liberal Democrats, on the other hand, have done really well as well. They're the second biggest gainers in the local election. But as many people will tell you, the local elections are a protest vote. They regularly are. But I do not believe Bennock will make it to the next election. She won't. It's inevitable.
Not a chance.
No. And I mean, and the local election has a lot of analytical material that's going on. But in essence, you have to take away from this 29% were the voters. Farage is only eating Conservative core areas. There isn't a massive inroad into Labour seats, contrary to what is being spouted by by British press. Liberal Democrats are generally left-leaning. Greens are doing very well. Liberals are doing very well. Labour is holding the ground for now. I don't think there's going to be a Labour government next election. I don't. I think
I'm literally thinking it's going to end up being Lib Dems.
No, I don't think we'll win an election straight off.
No.
We will take a crap load of seats, I suspect.
Might be a shared government like last time.
See, they're dangerous. I don't want us in bed with Labour. Because we saw what happened when we were in bed with fucking Conservatives.
Oh, fucking that went wrong.
That went horribly, horribly wrong.
They literally just took the Labour people just to gain the power and then just kick them the fuck out.
Yeah, I mean, that's underhanded. I like that. But that sounds like you.
I'll come through with the uppercut.
Let's make a deal, Mr. Labour. Now we're in government. Bang! Fuck off. That's it. Sit them on the junior table. Treat them like we was treated when the Conservatives did 15 years ago. Jesus Christ. To be quite honest, there is an upheaval in British politics. It is coming. It is irrevocably coming. Anyway, moving on from the local elections. Grooming gangs. Victim would rather be dead most days as abuser's sentence. One of the victims of a grooming gang has said she would rather be dead most days than deal with the trauma she experienced as a result of the abuse. She shared the devastating impact of the abuse that has had on her life as a victim's statement that was read out at the Liverpool Crown Court. The group of 10 men who groomed, raped and sexually abused underage girls in Blackrod, Bolton, between 2016 and 2018 have all been sentenced. They are literally called the Blackrod gang. You don't see them on the British press because they're all white men. They're all white men and pseudo-Christianic. The whole lot of them.
Absolutely disgusting. This actually ties in very nicely with Lucy Powell's scandal over grooming gangs. Start from the very top. Rape victims say Labour minister should resign after calling grooming gangs dog whistle issue. What the fuck, Lucy?
It is a major problem.
Seriously?
It is a major problem. But it isn't a racial problem. It's a UK lack of policing problem. We need to stop treating it like it's a Muslim or a brown people problem. I didn't even know you were going to bring that one up, to be honest.
Literally, Labour Minister Lucy Powell is facing calls to resign from rape survivors after calling grooming gang scandal a dog whistle issue. The leader of the House of Commons is facing criticism that she belittled victims with comments she made on BBC Radio. She was on BBC Radio 4 Any Questions programme on Friday night with Conservative Party co-chairman Nigel Hudson, Liberal Democrat MP Helen Morgan and political commentator and Reform UK member Tim Montgomery when she was asked about the grooming gangs. when Mr. Montgomery brought up the recent Channel 4 documentary about 5 women's stories of being groomed and abused by gangs, Miss Power replied, "Oh, we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Let's get the dog whistle out, shall we?" What the fuck? No, sorry.
There is. And do you know what I'm saying? I'm not here to sugarcoat that there is a fucking problem in the UK with grooming gangs. But we need to get away from it from being a skin colour or religious group and start dealing with it by adding more police to solve the problem. And the way you solve that with money comes from taxes need reforming. There is a whole listable battery of problems we need to resolve.
But I agree completely with this article. Sorry, Lucy, you need to be kicked the fuck out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
You can't say that.
No, that is career-ending sentence, and you've said it on BBC Radio. There is no way out of it. Get the fuck out of office. The fact that you call grooming.
Grooming gangs are not a dog whistle. Like I said, I've literally got the Black Rod gang sat here, as he's just mentioned about Montgomery talking about grooming gangs.
Yeah.
Now, Montgomery is going to try to play a race card in that, because he's a UKIP.
I can guarantee he'll probably try and spin the race card. But I don't give a shit. Lucy, you're out of office. I don't give a flying
Absolutely.
fuck. Yeah, you need to go straight off. I don't care if it's a case of the fact that your government fucking fire you, but just handing your fucking notice and fuck off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
That no rape victim should ever be treated like that in public fucking radio.
No.
Beyond disgusting. And no Labour minister should ever have had What was she fucking thinking when she said that?
If I was the host of that Radio 4 radio channel, I'd simply go, hang on, Lucy, get out.
Yeah,
I would kick her straight the fuck out.
Absolutely.
I'd be like, sorry, that is absolute controversial. Hypocrisy.
Beyond controversial.
Get the fuck out.
There's no these are rape victims. You cannot say that. It doesn't matter that Montgomery's was looking for a racial card to play. That's what Lucy should have waited for. Yeah. She should have waited for him to start talking about Muslims and brown
play
people.
The racial card, then turn around and go, no, it's not just a racial card, you
mention
twat.
the fact that it's a disease. Because I said, I've literally got the Black Rod here. Daniel Fletcher, Jake Paulson, Corey Bennett, James Fitzgerald, fucking that's a name, Richard Halsman and Elliot Turner are the final 6 men that have been handed substantial sentence on the 29th of April for a range of sexual offences. The victims said that this story of how these individuals destroyed my life forever. I think nothing can hurt me as bad as what they did to me, but I'm still terrified of everything and everyone around me. I can't even go outside on my own. The suffering from everyone or every form of abuse from each of these individuals, and they continue to haunt me every day. These are the problems. The rape gangs are a problem. It isn't a racial thing, it is a country fucking problem, and the country needs to pay attention to them. We need more coppers, we need more coppers on the rape units, we need to get a fucking handle of this, and that requires us to put money in the system.
And ones that ain't being freaking influenced by fucking Israel, you twats.
Yeah,
still pissed off with you about that.
Absolutely fucking insane. Coppers taking orders from foreign countries, when this should be the things that they are dealing with. Literally. It's insane. It's absolutely fucking insane.
And if I get wind that influence is spread to the Gloucestershire police, I will be tackling it. I don't give a flying fucking shit.
No. It's very much a tight to Metpol. Most of the other police forces wouldn't even contemplate it. Look, let's be fair. We're podcasting here, smashing Israel, and we've never been spoken to.
Yeah.
Do you know? It would take them to actually pay someone from Metpol to drive up here. And even then, that will probably end up being challenged. I don't see it. The Gloucester police are good people. I don't see that happening. They are not. There's too few of them. I don't see them worrying about a couple of people talking about foreign countries influencing our police force. I just don't see that happening. They've got 99 problems, and we're not one of them.
I'm hoping it raises the issue with them thinking, oh, hang on, 2 people are voicing that. Let's make sure that does not enter our force. I'm hoping that's what they're thinking.
It's a non-starter. I don't see the British police force here in Gloucestershire having a political issue about 2 podcasters. It's just not going to happen. But back on the grooming gangs. The grooming gangs specifically are a critical problem of the United Kingdom's lack of funding and support for the police services. And this is something we should genuinely have a problem with. We should genuinely have an issue with the lack of police to deal with it. Because these men feel like they're impugned. Yeah? There's some of these gangs, like what we said in our previous podcast, Jimmy Savile operating for decades with the cover of the BBC. Decades of abuse. If you're in the right position, you can avoid police scrutiny. This gang did the same. British Pakistani gangs have done the same, and they are fucking disgusting. And I stand by that statement. They're fucking any grooming gang, regardless of race, colour, or creed, are vermin. To be said, there are no good religious Muslims who will ever support that disgusting behaviour.
I think there's no human being on earth that would actually support that behaviour.
Of course not. But so many people think that the Muslims, because of the debacle and conversation involving Aisha's age, is why we come to this thing. Because some parts of the Muslim world believe that Aisha married our Prophet when she was 6. Yeah, there is a section of the Muslim population that believes that. Yeah, and that is where the claim of grooming gangs come from. So you can understand as an agnostic man where that comes from. Most Muslims don't believe that. We believe our Prophet is the best of all men, and we believe that Aisha was between 16 and 20. That's where a bulk of us do. But there is a large section of the Muslim world that does consider the literal interpretation of 𝐶𝐸 al-𝐵𝐿. That's where we have a disagreement. But that's an internal Muslim matter, specifically. But it leads towards the fostering of these ideas. Because in Saudi Arabia, it is lawful to marry 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. The land of the Prophet, it's lawful. Whereas I would argue that if you were to look at the historical connotations, that wasn't normal. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's an argument on the premises of where it comes towards marriage. But marriage isn't the same as grooming gangs.
Marriage is a tough enough thing as it is, let alone as young as a 12-year-old. Yeah,
marriage is a very mature kind of conversation and material to have, but you have the contextual position of grooming gangs have nothing to do with the marriage of our Prophet and his youngest wife, I believe she was the youngest, Aisha. So this has nothing in contextual position.
But then you've also then got to take into the fact of the time frame it was happening in. Because of the fact, obviously, we have, as the human species has progressed, everything else has progressed with it.
Absolutely.
So obviously, back saying the
7th century,
you were lucky if you was to live past 35, I think, or something
32.
like that. 32, yeah. So
diseased,
literally
warfare, plagues, everything else.
The age of being married off from 12 to 16 would have been within
acceptable time frame for them,
because that's roughly about half your life.
Yeah, but then you've got to remember about that. The fact is, in Britain alone, we had people getting married as young as 14, 15 in Britain last century. Like that, the age restriction involving marriages has only crept up in the last 100 years. I think I did some research on it. In 1907, 08, I think it was. It might have been 18. It's one of those two. So nearly a century ago
is when we started bringing in proper marriage law.
No. Was when with Cathy McFadden on the phone, married at the age of 14 to a smokestacker, someone who melted down materials, and he was in his 30s. That was normal a century ago. Here in the UK. And that's one of those things. We've only in the last century moved our dial on when marriage should be done because of the extension of people's life expectancies. So, and that's the West. That's Western Britain. That's Imperial Britain. Literally a century ago. Crumbling Imperial Britain, but Imperial Britain. 15, 14-year-old. So this is what I'm saying. The age of consent of marriage has only dialed up in the last century.
As life expectancy
has gone on, we've decided we want to put more knowledge into our daughters and sons. We want them to think more. We want them to be more articulated as time has gone by. Always about a problem about that, and I know this is a bit of a tangent from our podcast. You do know where the largest Western underage marriages are, don't you?
Hang on, what did he close at the start of underage marriage? Is that under the age of 16?
Under the age of 16.
16. What's the largest?
Largest in the Western world.
What the fuck?
Christian evangelical America. 350,000 in 2018.
Oh, I like the way he just dropped religion in that.
Christian evangelical. Because they are. They're Christian evangelicals. 350,000 by 2018.
See, this...
And they range between, admittedly, most of them are 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Those are what we in the British West would call underage. But in America, there's no age, there's no minimum age of marriage in about 25 states.
That needs to change.
They've only just started putting minimum ages of marriage in blue states. Places like New York and that. I'm serious. It's a very recent thing. Christian evangelical marriages of young age is absolutely.
Is there any of those in Britain, or is it all based in the US?
We have some, but ours are part of the ethnic minorities. They are Muslims. It is Muslim marriage. I'm not sugarcoating that, we do. But our population towards it are only thousands.
Yeah.
We have thousands, and it's a fucking problem. I have a problem as a liberal democratic Muslim that there are underage marriages. I have a problem with that.
I honestly think they need to step up the game and actually come up with the times of length, age, and raise that.
Yeah.
Regardless, across all religions, regardless.
Yeah, of
where
course,
you're from.
absolutely. America is the biggest convictor of child marriage in the entirety of the Western world. 350,000 just in 2018.
Just no.
Just in 2018.
You need to let that child grow up and actually then be of sound mind to actually make that call. Absolutely. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. But that's the fundamental argument that's being had. We, the Muslims, are constantly attacked because of the age of Aisha. We have come off on a tangent here, but it's on grooming gangs and ages.
There's only one thing I would say to that argument is consider the time
of when the Prophet was alive.
Of when that all happened.
Century, literally.
And then if you used to bring that to our time frame now, the age would not be disputed because of the fact there would have been laws and everything else in place which would have prevented that. So it's a case of the fact you need to look at the time frame of the era that was going on compared to now. If we was to turn around and say modernise that into our time frame now, it would be a lot older before they even got married.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, because you have medicine, you have modern survival means. That is the fundamental realities. Whereas there are literalists to both the Quran and the Hadiths that say, oh no, if it was good for the Prophet, I can do it now.
No, absolutely.
Of course not.
Sorry,
no. There are no real sensible Muslims who genuinely say that.
No, absolutely. Just because it happened in whatever century down the line does not mean it happens here and now.
Exactly.
We've moved on past that era. We've evolved since that era. And I'm hoping sociopolitically, and I'm hoping intelligently as well. That could be a debate for another thing. that could be a debate for another time.
300,000 fucking child brides.
I'm hoping intellectually they would have raised past that, but unfortunately, some people do not.
Just we got onto that America thing. America's also in the top 5 underage bride marriages worldwide. So not only are they the top of the top of bride marriages in the West, they're in the top 5 of the worldwide bride marriages. So even the Muslim world is starting to get a handle. Africa and that are starting to get a handle on this. America's still in the top 5, and you motherfuckers call us barbarians. Right, let's move on. Your second subject. Come on.
Third.
That's it, Dad.
Third. Let's break up the political and everything else sort of with a bit financial. Why does cost of fuel vary from town to town within the UK? It's a very good because this is just from the first topic I read on it as well. Is the fuel in my town 10p more than the areas next door? This was based on local one. Driving instructor Nigel Brown wants fuel prices in Scunthorpe to be brought in line with those in Whitbury and Brigleton. I'm terrible at reading.
Where is that?
Burglington. Yeah. Fuel prices can be affected by varied factors from global conflicts to cost of the barrel of crude oil.
They shouldn't change per town to town.
But in parts of North Yorkshire, a 30-mile drive can see a cost of litre drop by 11p.
There's no justification behind it.
That's just literally just a snippet from that one, which made me to.
And the answer to that is it's price gouging.
Yeah.
There are variated price wars that are going on.
Yeah. Reality check is why fuel prices vary so much. Readers have been in touch following last week's report rising fuel prices about their local prices. The article reported the RSE saying the average petrol price has risen by 6p a litre in May, which is the biggest monthly increase since it began tackling prices in 18 years ago.
Jesus.
Ian Gandar asked why fuel around Towcester in Northamptonshire appear to be more expensive than in most other regions in the UK. And just literally scroll down to the graph, regional variance and other prices. Literally, this is ridiculous of how much it varies. Absolutely disgusting. In South East, it can be a minimum of almost to £1.10 a litre, going all the way up to £1.50. London from I say about 125 up to 150. Southwest from 110 to almost 150. Literally, you're seeing variances from...
It's price gouging.
Yeah, variances from about 40p difference. Depending on the area.
Depends on the company, depends on the variations. There is no justification for two towns to have two different fuels. There should be a base set by government on fuel costs in a region.
Everything I've researched down to, it all comes down to the fact of what is available within your area. So if you have more companies within your area, you're more likely going to get companies that sell fuel in the area, you're more likely going to get a lower price. But the lesser, the more it jumps up. Or if they know if they're the only one within a certain mile radius, then they'll turn around and jack up the price.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, and this is all having a knock-on effect, and it's all a lot of it is based upon our tax codes and our tax environments. We lack a centralistical understanding as British people towards our tax code. We need to pay attention to it. We need to start engaging more in British politics. You, the British people, need to start waking up and realising that you are, to be unpolitically correct about this, fucked regularly by corporate interests.
It is purely down to the corporations.
And that needs to be stopped. It needs to be better regulated. But then we've been saying that about waterworks. We've been saying that about our sewers, about our electrics, about our trains.
They're only just starting to actually realise that the petrol prices and the cost of fuel and everything else in crude oil needs to be regulated, and it's only just coming into effect. So it's going to be a while before we even see some sort of
regulation
stability.
towards it. I don't in the slightest see this being resolved anytime soon.
I honestly believe we'll probably end up having infrastructure of electric cars before we see a price regulation of petrol and crude oil.
Of course not, because the crude oil industry has so many lobbyists. This is why lobbyism should be banned in Parliament. All forms of lobbying is legalised bribery. That's exactly what the fuck it is. Lobbyism is legalised bribery. It needs to be.
We'll give you this if you pass this for us.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is.
It's disgusting. All forms of lobbyism is disgusting. That's not idealism. It's real. And yet the West does it all the time. And we need to get a fucking handle on it.
It needs to be regulations on it, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, beyond disgusting.
The fact that even I've noticed it within Gloucestershire from here to Cheltenham. At one point, if you was actually willing to travel to Cheltenham, you can get 10p off a litre of fuel. Not so much now, but it has been in the past.
Jesus Christ, that's bad. That's
I know. The further south I go, like down towards Cornwall and Devon and whatnot, the cheaper the fuel is. Until you get to a certain point where it's tourist populated, and then the price jumps up.
Yeah, because that's again they're trying to gouge tourists. Are you done with that one?
Yeah, done with that one.
Fantastic. Israel's reservists speak out against Gaza's war as pressure builds on Netanyahu. The Israel war in Gaza grinds on, but opposition is growing. In recent weeks, thousands of Israeli reservists from all branches of the military have signed letters demanding the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government stop the fighting and concentrate instead on reaching a deal to bring back the remaining 59 hostages being held by Hamas. 18 months ago, few Israelis doubt the war's logic to defeat Hamas and return the hostages. For many, the January ceasefire and subsequent return of more than 30 hostages raised hopes that the war might soon end. But after Israel broke the ceasefire, remember, Israel broke the ceasefire, not Hamas. The military power backed by Western interests broke the ceasefire. Those hopes were dashed. We come to the conclusion that Israel is going to a very bad place, Daniel 𝐬𝐿, a former head of the spy agency Mossad, told us. We understand that what mainly bothers Netanyahu is his own interest and is listed in the priorities. His interests and the interests of having the government stable are the first ones and not the hostages. Netanyahu wants to stay in power because the minute the war ends, he will be arrested. For multiple reasons inside of Israel, the Israeli courts want to arrest him and whole sections of his own cabinet. So he will do anything to remain in power, including slaughtering innocent people, women and children, including demonizing Israel. For Israel to survive as a state, you have to prosecute your criminals who are in government. You have to. Because you are alienating the only people who can help you. Because America's fucked. Let us remind you of this. The trade war that America has started is going to destroy American hegemony. It is already unravelling as we see it. in real time. This is an America's own internal wound. And because of that, Israel, you need Europe. Europe will not tolerate you murdering women and children. We won't. We just won't. Okay? Ignore the politicians. Ignore what those cunts tell you. We will not tolerate you murdering women and children. And that will mean those politicians will be replaced. It is a matter of inevitability. Britain aiding you, even Nigel Farage wouldn't survive ignoring 40,000 dead women and children. That's the cost so far. 18 months on, 40,000 women and children are dead. Is an estimate. And that might be an underestimation.
This is what I don't get. Why are you going to such extremes to...
It's about land. They want to take the land. They want
to literally eliminate Hamas. When you could have, if you actually used your brain, which I'm convinced now Israelis don't have a brain, you could have literally done tactical engagements on the floor, on the ground, with your soldiers, and literally just eliminated the groups of Hamas with very minimal, perhaps even zero. No. Casualties.
You see, that's the problem. Israel refuses to let their soldiers have casualties because they're terrified of them. They're terrified of having soldiers. They use drones, missiles, anything that keeps them away from combat itself. The Israeli army has no courage.
Sit at a computer and just go, there's one possibly in there, bang, gone. Another one there, possibly,
and that's
bang,
why we
gone.
have such monstrous casualties. And then there are Israeli snipers and Israeli soldiers who are just pointedly murdering them because Israel has convinced itself that the native population, the Palestinians, have to be erased for Israel to continue to survive.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. No, it's madness. These are the ideologies. You only have to listen to there's a recent documentation that's of a Jewish man documenting what the Israelis are saying, letting them talk, not talking over them, not editing, letting them explain themselves. And that documentary is brutally clear that the Israeli settlers and the right wing of Israel want the extermination of the entire Palestinian people. Want them exterminated. Literally the words that are used by some of them. Exterminated.
What the fuck did they do to you?
Breathing, living on land that God promised them 3,000 years ago.
On whose God?
You see, this is the problem. And the problem being is so much of the Israeli population are actually atheistic. They still make these claims. You understand how mad this is? They make the claims that God promised us this land 3,000 years ago.
No one's promised any fucking land. I don't give a shit what the fuck you bloody say.
Living in harmony with your fellow men is let me be very, very clear. This is not a Jewish thing. The Jewish people are lovely people. Actual practicing Jews are lovely human beings. We are not having a problem with that. The Zionists of Israel are genocidal psychopaths. They are an apartheid regime. They have always been an apartheid regime. And now the Israeli reservists are starting to realise this. Now the Israeli population are starting to realise that their government is evil. They are absolutely fucking evil. This is the first open letter to be published in early April. Was signed by 1,000 Air Force reservists. This is prior to the second letter. The continuation of the war does not contribute to any declarated goals, they wrote, and they will lead to the death of the hostages. The signatories urge leaders to follow their lead before time ran out. An estimated 24 hostages still holding through that, though they're alive in Gaza. The problem being is, the current letter has over 12,000 signatures. If the reservists are lost, Israel's army dies. Because they rely so heavily on their reservists. And their reservists have been called up 6-7 times now. 6-7 times in the last 18 months. And there is massive fatigue. Israel is going to kill itself as a state, militarily, because of Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to remain in power. His desire to remain in power to avoid, because he knows, the minute he leaves the Prime Minister's office, the Israelis are going to bang him up. They're going to lock him up for bribery, corruption. There's a whole string of crimes that the Israeli courts want him for.
As it says already, don't it? The fact that your own people,
your own government, your own court is going to bang him up. The minute he leaves the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister is immune to the law, immune to court, and he's extending this war because he knows the next general election he's lost it. That's why he's got the emergency powers. He's extending this conflict for as long as he physically can because he does not want to be removed from office, because he's going to prison probably for the rest of his life. And that's an Israeli prison. We're not even talking the war crimes committees that want him in Europe. We haven't even got that far yet.
I can tell you now, if he ends up anything outside of Europe, he'll probably end up be dead.
I don't think that he will ever leave Israel again. unless he's under an armed escort to America and back. And I don't think America's ability to protect Israel is going to last much longer. I genuinely think that we are living the last days of both Israel as a nation and America as a superpower. I think the death of America the death of Israel is all but guaranteed unless the Israelis literally lynch this government and throw them to the dogs and all the war criminals with them. And then
that's the only way you're going to save yourself.
Yeah, and the state of Israel is in peril. It is not in peril because of the Palestinians. It's in peril because the rest of the world will not do business with you because of the crimes you have committed. This is why I don't see that the Israelis understand.
The bad people which are in power of your state at the moment are literally just digging everybody's graves within your state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an example of what is massively wrong with, and we support this. We sell bombs to this. We give spycrafts to this. British current policy, the current Prime Minister supports what's going on in Israel.
He should be lynched.
You can't say that. I do not want you getting arrested. A'udhu billah. Naughty.
Then he needs to step out of it.
Of course he does.
He needs to step out of it.
But the problem is, in his party, he's gained new funding, and that new funding comes from the Friends of Israel.
Don't care.
And because of that, they are now beholden to what the Israeli lobbyists want.
Hand the money back and tell them go away.
He can't do that. He's already spent it. That's the point. He is bound by the financial means and necessities.
Raise the funds to get the money and send it back.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, no. I completely agree with you. But that's the reality we live in. It's mad.
It's just pissing me off that foreign powers are dictating
absolutely.
what we can do.
Both our police and our policies. And the aid we give them and the political coverage we give them. You were to ask the average Briton, they would have what I call a Christopher answer. Why are we involved? That's the most neutral position you can be in. Obviously, I'm an Irishman. I fucking hate oppression anyway, and I'm a Muslim, so it's a double barrel for me. It's a double barrel. I'm an Irishman. I don't like people being mistreated.
And don't be following behind him, telling all the rest of them, fuck off. I don't want you.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's a double barrel point of view. But from the neutral point of view, why are we involved?
There's no need for us to be involved. There's no need for us to be involved anyway.
The politics and economics are so closely tied together. Israel's fall will happen because Benjamin Netanyahu isn't prosecuted. The Israelis, to keep their country, because America is fucked. This trade war is going to destroy America. In the greater context.
We already know America's not going to come out on top of the trade war.
Yeah, the trade war is going to destroy America's credibility. Europe is probably going to turn away from America. Britain might follow, we might not. You know, we're a complicated situation there. In the fact we have almost never given up our special relationship with America. I don't fucking know why. But it's an abusive relationship we're in. But the rest of Europe will leave the American bloc. Once they have left the American bloc, Israel is fucked unless they deal in a more humane method. Because there's not enough money for them to purchase every politician in fucking goddamn Europe. There just isn't. Because you've already bought America's politicians. You know, you've got to float that boat. Madness. Social care. Go on,
yeah,
you go.
Social care. MP wants social care needs substantial investment to fix the broken system. This, I think, is rather apt since it's come out like over 8 hours ago. A cross-party group of MPs have warned attempts to reform adult social care are doomed to fail unless ministers accept major investment is needed to overhaul a broken system that was failing millions of people. Reform of social care was typically seen by the government as a burden on the taxpayer and a drain on resources rather than a positive boost to people's lives, the NHS and the economy, said the Health and Social Care Select Committee. Yeah. Time and again, the government has stepped back from reform when faced with the cost. Too much emphasis is put on the cost of change and not enough consideration is given to the human and financial cost of no or incriminating change is added. While the costs of the reform system were substantial, up to 17 billion, according to some estimates cited in the committee's report. This has to be set against the 32 billion currently spent every year on the system that was failing.
Yeah. Genuinely, I fundamentally stand by two things here. You need to reform the tax system to generate more money. The corporate elite need to stop dodging taxes by legally dodging. I'm not saying that they're breaking the law here. Please don't assume that
they're using
the tax loops and back doors for all of them not to pay tax. Everybody pays less tax than we do. We, the general public. Those back doors need to be closed. The main tax bracket for corporations needs to be dropped to an actual fucking reasonable drop.
Yeah, not, what's it, 60-odd%?
No. That's 60 if you're under $1 million.
60 if you're under $1 million?
Over $1 million, you'll start looking at 75 upwards.
No, I don't give a shit. It should be dropped fucking far lower than that.
Yeah, of course. The top bracket should be around 55%, but all riders need to be removed. Every single one of them.
I don't even think it should be 55%, to be quite honest. How are you going to fund money into the friggin' everything else if you're spending half your wages on tax?
No. The corporations, not us.
Corporations. No, even them. How are they going to
because that's 55% of their profit.
Yeah.
Because you're using the facilities of our country, burden of society has always been on the corporations, on the guilds, on the businesses. When you look through history, Chris, you've got to understand that the burden of building hospitals was done by big businesses in the Victorian period. Building schools done by Victorian multimillionaires. Do you understand what I'm saying? This was the things that were done. The reason that they used to get tax breaks was because they would do big social care.
So they would do something that would benefit us, not
Yes.
But they don't do that anymore.
No, of course not.
They just take tax breaks.
They just take their tax breaks and walk away.
Then literally I'll just turn around and say, you got two options. We'll either reform the thing so you actually pay tax, or you start contributing to society in a massive way.
Exactly.
Make your choice.
And I'm telling you this now, they say that the businesses will leave. Let them leave. I say this loudly, let them leave, because no one likes a vacuum. There are 70 million people who are customers here in the UK. Someone will pick up the slack.
The fact that if the business leaves, that means it wasn't a good business to start.
Absolutely. That's the insanity of it.
Because the ones that are realising, I can literally turn around and actually still make a fair, decent bit of profit contribute to the local government or
society in general, hospitals, schools, roads. And these are the things that the old money used to pay. To dodge their tax. They would do these infrastructural jobs and then get a tax rebate.
To be quite honest, that ain't too bad.
No, of course not.
No. If I was a company, I'd go, hang on, no, I'll build you a school as long as I get tax back. Yeah, that's fine, that's no problem.
You see, that system doesn't exist anymore.
No.
And that's the fucking problem.
Yeah.
We are in a society where corporations are allowed to claim as much tax back as they want and pay very little into society, they have to.
Yeah, reform the tax system so it's either a case of you give the corporations two options. You either contribute to society, which then you'll get a one and only legal tax break based on what you've done, or you just pay tax.
Yeah.
Straight
And
off.
this is why I believe that the tax bracket of 55% for corporations is an acceptable tax bracket, because they pay less than that. They pay physically less than that.
They pay less than what we do.
Of course. And then that allows us to give a tax break to the British public. That then allows us to take the windfall we would make from those taxes to start fixing many of these financial problems. As you said, 17 billion. We can generate that. That's not unreasonable. It's where are you spending this money? Like, why are we spending money supporting Israel?
No, that'd be straight out the fucking
window. Do you know what I'm saying? Just move the money.
I'll be like, is that a war that's going to financially better us or whatnot?
No, of course not. No. There's no justification. There is no justification.
Then we're not getting involved straight off the bat.
Absolutely no justification behind it. And it's mad because people seem to think that is actually a normal thing, that we've had 18 months of this madness and people need to keep speaking about it. We need to keep articulating it because of the problems that we have here in the UK. We are not the great nation we used to. I love my country, I really do. But we are not great as Britain again. We haven't been since we were kids.
The only way we can achieve that is by some
actual internal fixing.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but everyone outside of the UK will do deals with you regarding trade and whatnot, but if it comes to funding war, fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. We need to close ourselves off, start building, start engineering, start fixing. The problems in Europe are acute because they do affect us, because that affects our food.
Yeah, but then that's where we would have a say in the table within the Europe,
of course.
within the EU.
But we should return to the EU financially because it has been nothing but a fucking disaster. And I know...
I've got a fantastic point. If we start sticking our nose in other people's wars, it means less refugees and everyone else coming over to our shores.
No, that's not true. The refugee problem is a massive, massive issue in Europe. It's a lot more complex.
Yeah, but if we stop funding the people that are having the fucking wars, what are they going to be doing the war with? Absolutely nothing, which means those wars will drop off the table, which will then reduce the migration issues. Let's just think common sense.
But the biggest argument there is America. And Europe is unfortunately codependent with America. We need to get rid of America to slow those wars of migrations. You need. Well,
at this rate, we need to get rid of it because they're doing it in bloody selves.
This is very true. America's killing themselves. I'm well aware of that. That's their own self-inflicted.
To be quite honest, at this rate, America imploding on themselves regarding this stupid trade war will actually benefit everyone else because it will. Oh yeah. It will literally decrease the amount of wars that are going on because there'll be no funding towards it. Because the fact everyone else is like, well, hang on, it's not going to benefit us because the fact Mr. Big Boy over there shit itself and can't do anything. So, no, fuck off.
Anyway, moving on from the Middle East. 8 arrested in 2 separate anti-terror operations. 7 Iranian nationalists are among 8 men arrested in 2 major counter-terrorism investigations that took place separately on Saturday. That's the Saturday just gone from us. Well, we're on Monday the 5th of May. First, the arrest was part of a pre-planned investigation into an alleged plot to target specific premises, the Metropolitan Police Force says. Oh, actually, the Met Pol actually doing their job for a change.
Oh, my God.
Dramatic footage taken in Rochdale showed one man removed from a house by armed officers, whilst another was filmed being dragged through the streets in Swindon with plastic bags placed over his arms. As part of the separate investigations led by the Met's Counter-Terrorism Unit, CTC, responsible for leading counter-terrorist and espionage investigations, these 3 other Iranian men were arrested in London on Saturday. Home Secretary 𝐬𝐿𝐫𝐾 said the operations worked on bomb by hundreds of police officers and staff were among the biggest counter-state threat and counter-terrorism operations in recent years. I happen to agree that's an excellent thing. The problem being is counter-terrorism isn't the only problem we've got in the UK for policing. This ties into the police are not given enough funding to deal with domestic problems. This is not a domestic problem. I genuinely think military police should have been involved in this as well, to carry the slack of much of the actual man hours. And the reason I say this is because we don't have enough police to solve, admittedly, from the 2 pages, the grooming gangs. Yeah, that ties absolutely critically. Now, yes, we need to solve this, but this should be, in my mind, a military position, not a civilian position, because we don't have enough civilian cops to deal with the actual civilian problems.
I'm going to say anything terrorism-wise, there's also people outside the UK posting threats on us. It should be dealt with by the military.
Commander Dominic Murphy, the CTC head, stressed that there were no treating the 2 investigations into separate incidences as linked. He said the operations were certainly significant and it is unusual for us to conduct the scale of this activity. 4 of the 5 men arrested at locations across England, 2 aged 29, 1 aged 40 and another aged 46. Jesus, our age group. Are Iranian nationals. Police and the nationality and the age of the 5th were still being established. The men were arrested in Swindon, West London, Stockport, Rochdale and Manchester.
Swindon? That close?
Yeah. In the video captured by a residence, officers can be seen using an explosive to gain entry to a property. In another, officers carried firearms and wearing helmets and can be seen leading the suspect around the side of a house. Video captured by members of the public in Swindon showed officers wearing balaclavas and plain clothing who can be seen dragging a suspect with clear plastic bags on his arms through the pedestrian area. One eyewitness told the BBC that 6 men entered the cafe the suspected were in and sat opposite him before ordering coffees and donuts. When the men left, they followed him out and jumped on him in the street, just near the Costa Coffee. So there's major anti-terrorism issues. Iran is doing some fucking funny shit here in the country. We don't know what it is. Of course I condemn it, because it's fucking dirty bastards. They're trying to harm my people. And I love all Britons. For all of their mistakes, I do. Even Nigel Farage to a degree. I just don't want the man anywhere near power.
Slap him back into where he belongs.
Yeah, go back to investment banking. Nigel, you're not a politician. Police said the investigation that led to the England-wide arrests relates to a suspect's plot to target specific premises which were not maimed. And this is a good thing. This is something that Met Pol actually does rather well. The problem being is Met Pol does everything else badly, especially when it comes to domestic. In fact, Met Pol probably shouldn't be allowed to deal with domestic issues around the rest of the UK except on the most dire circumstances, because they lack the training and empathy to be decent police officers. I genuinely stand that. Because almost every time that they're involved in something that's domestic, it goes fucking awry. Absolutely awry. And this is where we have a fundamental problem and a disconnection of what the police duty should be and in what they should be doing. But that's the nature of what it means to be a British Metropolitan Police Force. Though I have to say this, I'm personally very, very impressed with what they did with the anti-terrorism. It's a good thing. It saves our country, protects our people, stops them from harming innocent people, and I'm always in favour of that. I think that comes to a conclusion of what we've done today. Have you got anything more, Chris?
No, I think that's it.
No. I think we've covered quite a few things here today. If you've managed to make it to the end of our podcast, we deeply appreciate what you've done. Like and subscribe as always. I'm John, Yahya or Sean, depending on who the fuck you're asking.
I'm Chris. Hope you have a smashing day.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure having you here. And as always, come back for the next episode.